Hello, this is Kris Clark, and I have the pleasure of reading for you today. I'm going to be reading part 4 of the chapter, A Hippo Banquet. This is from the book Travels in West Africa, written by Mary Kingsley, and it was published in 1897. Again, this is part 4 of 4 parts of the Hippo Banquet. Peace having been proclaimed, conversation became general. Gray Shirt brought his friend up and introduced him to me, and we shook hands and smiled at each other in the conventional way. Pagan's friend, who was next introduced, was more alarming, for he held his hands for half a minute just above my elbows without quite touching me. But he meant well, and then we all disappeared into a brown mass of humanity and a fog of noise. You would have thought, from the violence and vehemence of the shouting and gesticulation, that we were going to be forthwith torn to shreds. But not a single hand really touched me, and as I, Pagan, and Gray Shirt went up to the town in the midst of the throng, the crowd opened up in front and closed in behind, evidently half frightened by my appearance. The row when we reached the town redoubled in volume from the fact that the ladies, the children, and the dogs joined in. Every child in the place, as soon as it saw my white face, let a howl out of it, as if it had seen his satanic majesty, horns, hoof, tail, and all, and fled into the nearest hut, headlong, and I fear from the continuance of the screams, had fits. The town was exceedingly filthy. The remains of the crocodile they had been eating the week before last, and the piles of fish offal, and the remains of an elephant, hippo, or manatee, I really can't say which, decomposition was far too advanced, united to form a most impressive stench. The bark huts are, as usual in a fan town, in unbroken rows, but there are 3 or 4 streets here, not only one as in most cases. The Pavler house, is in the innermost street, and there we went and noticed that the village view was not in the direction in which we had come, but across towards the other side of the lake. I told the Ajamba to explain we wanted hospitality for the night and wished to hire 3 carriers for tomorrow to go with us to the Zimbabwe. For an hour and 3/4 by my watch, I stood in the suffocating, smoky, hot atmosphere, listening to, but only faintly understanding, the war of words and gesture that raged around us. At last, the fact that we were to be received being settled, Gray Shirt's friend led us out to the guardhouse, the crowd flinching as I came through it, to his own house on the right side of the street of huts. It was a very different dwelling to Gray Shirt's residence at the Arumba. I was as high as its roof ridge and had to stoop low to get through the door hole. Inside, the hut was 14 or 15 square feet, unlit by any window. The door hole would be closed by pushing a broad piece of bark across it under 2 horizontally fixed pieces of stick. The floor was sand, like the street outside, but dirtier. On it in one place was a fire, whose smoke found its way out through the roof. In one corner of the room was a rough bench of wood, which, from the few dirty clothes on it and a wood pillow, I saw was the bed. There was no other furniture in the hut, save some boxes, which I presume held my host's earthly possessions. From the bamboo roof hung a long stick with hooks on it, the hooks made by cutting off branching twigs. This was evidently the hanging wardrobe, and on it hung some few fetish charms and a beautiful ornament of wild cat and leopard tails tied on to a square piece of leopard skin, in the center of which was a little mirror, and round the mirror were sewn dozens of common shirt buttons. In among the tails hung 3 little brass bells and a brass rattle. These bells and rattles were not only for dandy, but served to scare away snakes when the ornament is worn in the forest. A fine strip of silky-haired young gorilla skin made the band to sling the ornament from the shoulder when worn. Gorillas seem enough known round here. One old lady in the crowd outside I saw had a necklace made of 16 gorilla canine teeth slung on a pineapple fiber string. Grayshirt explained to me that this is the best house in the village and my host the most renowned elephant hunter in the district. We then returned to the canoe, whose occupants had been getting uneasy about the way affairs were going on top on account of the uproar they heard and the time we had been away. We got into the canoe and took her around the little promontory to the end of the island on the other beach, which is the main beach. By arriving at the beach, when we did, we took our fan friends in the rear, and they did not see us coming in the gloaming. This was all for the best, it seems, as they said they should have fired on us after they had had time to see we were rank outsiders, on the apprehension that they were coming from one of the fan towns we had passed and from whom they were on bad terms, regarding a lady who revolted there from her lawful lord, taking with her, cautious soul, a quantity of rubber. The only white man who had ever been here before in the memory of man was a French officer who paid Kiva $6 to take him somewhere, I was told, but I could not find out where or what happened to that Frenchman. It was a long time ago, Kiva said, but these folks have no definite way of expressing duration of time, nor do I believe any great mental idea of it, although their ideas are, as usual for West Africans, far ahead of their language. All the goods were brought up to my hut, and while Naguta gets my tea, we started talking the carrier palaver again. The fans received my offer, starting at $2 ahead of what Monsieur Jacon said would be enough, with utter scorn, and every dramatic gesture of dissent. One man, pretending to catch Grayshirt's words in his hands, flings them to the ground and stamps them under his feet. I affected an easy take-it-or-leave-it manner and looked on. A woman came out of the crowd to me and held out a mass of slimy gray abomination on a bit of plantain leaf, smashed snail. I accepted it and gave her fish hooks. She was delighted and her companions excited, so she put them in her mouth for safekeeping. I hurriedly explained in my best fan that I do not require any more snail. So another lady tried the effect of a pineapple. There might be no end to this, so I retired into trade and asked her what she would sell it for. She did not want to sell it. She wanted to give it to me, so I gave her fish hooks. Silence and Singlet interposed, saying the price for pineapple is 1 leaf of tobacco, but I explained I was not buying. Naguta turned up with my tea, so I went inside and had it on my bed. The door hall was entirely filled with a mosaic of faces, but no one attempted to come in. All the time, the carrier palaver went on without cessation, and I went out and offered to take Grayshirt and Pagan's place, knowing that they must want their chop, but they refused relief and also said I must not raise the price. I was offering too big a price now, and if I once raise, the fan will only think it will keep on raising, so to make the palaver longer to talk. How long does a palaver usually take to talk around here? I asked. The last one I talked, said Pagan, took 3 weeks, and that was only a small price palaver. Well, said I, my price is for tomorrow morning, after which I have no price. After that, I go away. Another hour, however, sees the jam made, and to my surprise, I find the 3 richest men in this town of Mafeta have personally taken on the contract. Kiva, my host, Fifa, a fine young fellow, and Wiki, another noted elephant hunter. These 3 fans, the 4 Ajamba, and Iguala, Naguta, and I think will be enough. Moreover, I fancy it's safer not to have an overpowering percentage of fans in the party, as I know we shall have considerable stretches of uninhabited forest to traverse. And the Ajamba say that the fans will kill people, i.e. the black traders who venture into their country, and cut them up into neat pieces, eat what they want at the time, and smoke the rest of their bodies for future use. Now, I do not want to arrive at the Zimbabwe in a smoked condition, even should my fragments be neat. I am going on a different direction to what I said I was when leaving Kawangi, and there are so many ways of accounting for death around here. Leopard, canoe capsize, elephants, etc., that even if I were traced, well, nothing could be done then, anyhow, so we'll only take 3 fans. One must diminish death certainties to the level of sporting chance around here, or one can never get on. No one, either Ajamba or Fan, knew the exact course we were to take. The Ajamba have never been this way before, the way for black traders being across being via Lake Azingo, the way Mr. Good of the American mission once went, and the Fan said they only knew the way to a big fan town called Ifua, where no white man or black trader have ever been. There was a path from there to the Zimbabwe, we knew, because the Ifua people take their trade all the way to the Zimbabwe. We would, they said, come with me all the way if I could guarantee them safety if they found war on the road. This I agreed to and arranged to pay off a Hatton or Cookson sub-factory on the Zimbabwe, and they have, quote, look my mouth and it will be sweet, so palaver done set. Every load then, by the light of the bush lights held by the women, we arranged. I had to unpack my bottles of fish so as to equalize the weight of the loads. Every load was then made into a sort of cocoon with bush rope. I was left in peace at around 11:30 p.m., and clearing off the clothes from the bench, threw myself down and tried to get some sleep, for we were to start, the Fan said, before dawn. Sleep impossible. Mosquitoes, lice. So at 12:40, I got up and slid aside my bark door. I found Pagan asleep under his mosquito net outside across the doorway, but managed to get past him without rousing him from his dreams of palaver, which he was still talking aloud, and reconnoitered the town. The inhabitants seemed to have talked themselves quite out and were sleeping heavily. I went down to the canoe and found it safe, high up among the fan canoes on the stones, and then I slid a small fan canoe off, and taking a paddle from a cluster stuck in the sand, paddled out onto the dark lake. It was a wonderfully lovely, quiet night, with no light save that from the stars. One immense planet shone preeminently in the purple sky, throwing a golden path down onto the still waters. Quantities of big fish sprung out of the water, their glistening silver-white scales flashing, so that they look like slashing swords. Some bird was taking a long, slow, boom-booming sound away in the forest shore. I paddled leisurely across the lake to the shore on the right, seeing crawling on the ground some large glowworms, drove the canoe up onto the bank among some hippo grass, and got out to get them. While engaged in this hunt, I felt the earth quiver under my feet and heard a soft, big sloughing sound, and looked round. I saw I had dropped in on a hippo banquet. I made out 5 of the immense brutes round me, so I softly returned to the canoe and shoved off, stealing along the bank, paddling underwater, until I deemed it safe to run out across the lake from my island. I reached the other side of it, to that on which the village is situated, and finding a miniature rocky bay with a soft patch of sand and no hippo grass, the ensigns of the fan hut suggested the advisability of a bath. Moreover, there are no china collection in that hut, and it would be a long time before I got another chance. So I go ashore again, and carefully investigating the neighborhood to make certain there are no human habitation near, I then indulged in a wash in peace. Drying oneself in one's cummerbund is not pure joy, but it can be done when you put your mind to it. While I was finishing my toilet, I saw a strange thing happen. Down through the forest on the lake bank opposite came a violet ball the size of a small orange. When I reached the sand beach, it hovered along to it, and it hovered along it to and fro to the ground. In a few minutes, another ball of similarly colored light came towards it from behind one of the islets, and the two wavered to and fro over the beach, sometimes circling round each other. I made it off towards them in the canoe thinking, as I still do, they were some brand new kind of a luminous insect. When I got onto their beach, one of them went off into the bushes and the other away over the water. I followed in the canoe, but the water here is very deep, and when I almost thought I had got it, it went down into the water and I could see it glowing as it sunk until it vanished in the depths. I made my way back hastily, fearing my absence with the canoe might give rise, if discovered, to trouble, and by 3:30 I was back in the hut safe, but not so comfortable as I had been on the lake. A little before 5, my men are stirring and I get my tea. I do not state my escapade to them, but ask what those lights were. A comb, says the fan, and pointed to the shore of the lake where I had been during the night. They said they came there. It was an aku, or devil bush. More than ever did I regret not having secured one of those two sort of phenomena. What a joy a real devil, appropriately put up in raw alcohol, would have been to my scientific friends.